Hi, Ali. How are
Hey.
you?
I'm well, Amanda. How are you?
Excellent. Now, I am going to dive in. I think this is a really interesting topic and an area of business that is well needed across many organizations and individuals at the moment. And we're talking about career counseling for working parents. And I guess for those of us that are already working parents, we clearly understand the juggle of working, of home life, the need for flexibility, support, and certainty from our employers as well. Now, if you are a new parent, and even if you are thinking about having a child, how do you set yourself up for a stable and successful transition into parenthood? And also, are organizations and their parental policies offering the right level of support for people? So, to talk about creating a career that fits for working parents, we have the founder of Work Pants, Ali Killaly. Welcome. Nice to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Now, let's start off about you. Tell us about your background and your previous career.
It feels like a really mixed bag of tricks. That at the time, it felt like I was really getting the career journey wrong because I was hopping and skipping and kind of following my interests and skills all around the place. So my background is in learning design, education, marketing. I then got into career development later, and strangely, the way often happens with careers, this random collection of things turned into work pants. And
Mm.
everything I have, this kind of Jill of all trades skill set that I have, comes together in work pants. And I think while I tried to force the process of finding out what my purpose was many times over throughout my career. It did all kind of come together, um, sort of by happenstance, I suppose, because I was going through parenthood at the same time as being really invested in my career and found there was so much friction and tension between these two roles in life.
Mm.
And so then and knowing what I know about career theory and the way everything's interlinked, we can't really compartmentalize these two things. Um, Work pants was the perfect fit for me, and I can see that it's so valuable for so many other people going on that journey of being working parents. So that's me.
Before we actually dive into the what you do, maybe just talk about your transition from a sort of full-time career into creating your own business as well.
Yeah, I can touch on it, but I feel like I should say, like it's not a recommended it's not a recommended approach necessarily. Um, so I had gone through the kind of parental leave journey with my eldest daughter, and it was brutally challenging. It was really difficult, and there was like redundancy in that journey as well, which is just way too common for new parents. And then I kind of thought I would do a whole bunch of things to insulate myself against that uncertainty. And I I was in a job that I really loved, and I had planned as best I could for this parental leave. My employers were really considerate and supportive, but you can't control every variable. And so I think my second daughter was about 3 weeks old when my boss at the time came up to visit me on the Sunshine Coast. First time we'd ever met face to
Wow.
face because I joined the company during COVID. Um, and, she came up to the Sunshine Coast to meet me and also tell me that the company had been acquired by one of the big four. Now, as part of that acquisition, my role didn't exist anymore.
Mm.
So I felt very different circumstances to my eldest daughter, but I felt like I was right back where I had tried to avoid being, which was lost and insecure, like at a really fragile point in my life and career. And so I had the choice to go into this consultancy and take like quite a junior role. And I couldn't reconcile that with my values and the journey I was on as a parent. And all the past experience that kind of led me to this. I was like, okay, don't be the turtle on their back for the second time. You have to fix this. And so that was when my youngest was 3 weeks old. She's now 2, and so I spent a lot of that parental leave working on work plans and creating this solution that I felt was an answer for an individual who was struggling with their work through parenthood, but also as a solution for a workplace to say, hey, we realize that we could be as supportive as possible, but what you're going through is still chaos. And so here's some extra help with your career.
What a challenging journey. And obviously, when you're sitting in it at that period of time, it's such a challenging time for you emotionally, you know, going through the emotions of having a child as what's happening through work. I mean, I can absolutely attest, and I think I've shared with you this story as well, that I had a similar challenging experience when I had my first child. I had my first child in America, where you've got 3 months maternity leave, and I had moved cities from LA to San Diego. I had a new boss. I was asked to interview for my job again within that 3 month period after only just having a child. I didn't know what was happening with my role. I was asked to move back from San Diego to LA, which is about, 2 hours drive away. And when I first restarted my job, I remember bursting into tears as I was interviewing for this role. It was a pretty horrific experience.
Oh,
My first week back on the job, my new boss said, "You have to fly to Bangkok because we've got a big summit that we have to do." So, I came back after 3.5 months, and I was away from my, son. I was breastfeeding at the time. It was a horrible time. And no support. There was no working from home, when I was coming back. So I, I, a lot of what you create comes from your own experiences. And because you've sat in that pain, you can really see some of the solutions. And I'm keen to understand, as you've built Work Pants now, what are some of the common challenges that you're seeing with people coming to you now?
honestly, one of the biggest challenges, and if someone's watching this and thinking, "Oh crap, what should I do?" I think one of the biggest challenges is self-confidence. And it's not always a result of a poor experience at work. Often there are so many other influences on the way we perceive what we should be doing as working parents. There's the societal impact around us that puts pressure on us to achieve so many different roles to perfection. We're in a state of uncertainty and doubt as new parents anyway, and then that can also bleed over into career. So I think one of the biggest challenges is that people have lost their confidence through that journey, and they get a whole lot of value in spending some time reframing their experience, reframing the journey of parenthood, reframing how their career is playing out, to realize that they've got so much to offer and they're capable. And these are extenuating circumstances that, you've never kind of tested yourself against before. So I think really it's one of the huge ones is self-confidence.
I know a few people that have come back on maternity leave, and a few comments that I've also heard is because businesses are changing so rapidly of late, their roles have shifted quite a lot. And so their teams, if you've been off for 12 months, their teams have shifted, the dynamics look different, the strategic priorities look different, and they're almost coming into a role where they have to almost start again. So I think you're so right about the self-confidence piece. Is there anything else thematically when someone starts again that you really have to help them reframe?
I mean, along with self-confidence is setting expectations. And sometimes what happens is we hold ourselves to our expectations from pre-parenthood, and we didn't even optimize ourselves necessarily before that. Perhaps no we had no reason to look at our productivity. So we were working longer hours. We were kind of stretching things beyond the size of the task accidentally, because there was no extreme pressure to say, hey, you've got to be out the door for daycare pickup. Someone's waiting for you at the end of today. And so I think setting expectations with yourself around, you can still have a productive day and it doesn't have to look like your work day from before. That's a huge one. Because there are lots of things you can do to just optimize your productivity so that you still feel like you're making a valuable contribution and you can fit in that parenting role as well. Now, a huge part of that obviously is how supportive your workplace is, to you taking perhaps a more flexible approach. So I think for an individual, yeah, looking at what a successful day looks like and really hacking that productivity again is massively helpful. To a workplace, I'd say really make sure that you have carefully considered what your flexible work policy is so that people can thrive when they come back.
Mm. Easing, I think it's all well and good to say easing back in, but your employer also has to be accommodating and supportive, and provide you that certainty that that your job is safe and they'll allow you to do that. So can you just talk through some of the work that you do with organizations to make that happen?
Yeah, interesting, because the workplaces that want to work with work pants are really progressive on that front. It would be really hard for us to work with an organization that doesn't get that, that doesn't see the importance of helping people ease back in. So to be honest, we get a lot of inspiration from those progressive workplaces and have a look at what best practice looks like for those returning parents. And the workplaces that are doing it really well recognize that it can be really valuable to give people like a graduated return to work. So they might be on full pay, but they ramp up their days if they're coming back full time. They might do 2 days, 3 days, 4 days across a number of weeks to help them get the rhythm back and figure out where they might be having a few challenges alongside that parenting journey. I think, yeah, if your workplace culture is really supportive and your leadership team recognizes that supporting working parents is important, equally they should be really open to having these conversations with you. Sometimes we have to give feedback to workplaces that the workplace expectation and the workplace culture isn't always aligning with the line manager, for example. So we might need to help them understand that there's a disconnect. And sometimes it's kind of just clinical. It is that there are different expectations, and the manager has different priorities that are being pushed that they're expected to achieve, and that might be impacting, like there's a bit of a conflict of interest around supporting like a graduated return to work and flexibility and helping a new parent, and also tough deadlines, because we're all obviously in these competitive working environments, know that we need to deliver. And so sometimes there can be a bit of a disconnect there, and they might need some help working out how to marry those two things up.
Mm. So will you support the line managers as well, or how does it work when you are in an organization that is progressive?
Yeah, so we might collect a bunch of feedback. So our sessions with the individuals are confidential, but there are times when we might in session say, look, this seems like it could be problematic. Would you be happy for us to represent some of these issues to the business? So we always check with an individual first, because you don't want to out somebody who's having challenges with their boss in a way that could make that relationship more difficult moving forward. So we would perhaps collect a bunch of information from the individual that they're happy for us to share, and then play that back to the business and say, here are some trends and here are some things we have that can support you. So we've got a manager guide on, like, it's like a talking points guide, and it helps managers navigate a lot of these conversations in a supportive and productive way. We also have feedback surveys where the individual can kind of talk about how they're feeling about their career overall in the organization. And sometimes the insights we're sharing are, great, this cohort of working parents is feeling really positive about their colleagues, but not very positive about their opportunities for growth and development. So the organization can think, great, we've got an insight there that we need to provide more opportunities for development for the working parents in our business.
That's great. And with the work that you've done, you're a year and a bit in now. How much are you feeling you're making a difference?
I wonder how many other coaches and career development people will relate to this. A lot of what we do is invisible.
Mm,
So we don't always see the outcome of our support. And you can sometimes give people a lot of support, a lot of education around how to navigate career and parenthood. And you don't know whether they take it on board and the impact that it has on their career over the long term. There might be things that you discuss in a session that help them work out how to navigate challenges way down the track in their career if they hang on to the insights. But sometimes you leave the session, you think, oh, they haven't got the answers
mm,
yet. Because we try and contain the solution into a 1 hour session, it's not going to happen, or even 3 1 hour sessions. So our impact sometimes can feel a little bit, it can feel a bit nebulous.
mm.
But what we love are the stories that we get back from working parents who participated either in the individual sessions or through a workplace program. And they would literally move you to tears because we have been part of such an emotional and important journey in their lives, and also recognize that the role of parenting is so important to them, but equally so is their career. Their career matters, and we're helping them find a happy place where both those things can exist. So I think that's been really beautiful. Another thing I'm really proud of is our dad's career guide. I think that has been really, really successful. It's a guide that is tailored specifically to fatherhood, and we designed it like a career guide so that dads could start to think about how the role of being dad is a career path, and to encourage them that if they're curious about being primary carer and taking that career break to be dad, what could that look like, and what are the rewards, what are the challenges. And so we launched that earlier this year, and we've part of the dad guides now incorporated into a wonderful service called SMS for Dads, which is text message support for new fathers. It's been accessed in over 11 countries. We've shared it with some of the biggest companies in Australia who are giving it to their working parents, and some of the smallest. And I think so much of the conversation around working parents centers around mothers and
Mm.
women, and it needs to change if we all want to have rewarding careers in our professional lives and in our parenting lives too.
Oh, well said. And it's look, kudos to you that you've created a dad's guide and you're getting that sort of traction, because I completely agree with you. The solution needs to be on both sides. So so good that you're thinking about both sides. I wonder how, so if you think about your work-life balance with your young kids as well, how is that looking?
um, well, I hate the word balance,
Yes.
Amanda, because I feel like it's something that we're all, if we put the word balance into the discussion, then we're wrestling with it all the time, and we have a constant feeling of failure when we don't achieve it. And I just don't think it exists. And I don't say that to like crush the hopes of people who want to be great parents and have professional careers. So I think those things can happen. But what it looks like for me is recognizing that it fluctuates. Sometimes I can be really on top of the work pants stuff and feel like I'm absolutely thriving in that sense and on the parenting front. And then life happens, and we've got a run of sort of 6 weeks of illness. So recently, the police knocked on the door during the day. I wasn't here. I was at I was at a meeting, and my husband was working from home, and the police knocked on the door because I had driven off from the petrol station without paying for fuel,
Oh,
right?
no.
And it had happened at some point in that 6 week gauntlet of illness for our youngest. And I looked back and I could see that when it happened, she wasn't sleeping well and I was really sleep deprived. So I kind of like to just laugh at, I mean, it would be really, it would be, it's fitting that I think I'm in the mess with everybody else. And
Mm.
I'm the scientist experimenting on myself here to see, well, what tweaks do we need to make to help these roles coexist more effectively? So that's what it looks like for me. It looks like driving off and the police coming and
Wow.
and then having moments of complete success on the parenting and professional front, but yeah,
Yeah.
never knowing which one's coming next.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that story. It is one, such a roller coaster, and two, I hope you didn't ruminate on that and it was just take it down to a, crappy experience at the time. Obviously, sleep deprived and all that sort of thing. And I hope you've forgiven yourself.
Oh, I didn't feel bad about it. I thought it was hilarious. Like we paid for the petrol. We just and the police told us that it happens so often.
Wow.
So, for anybody that's done it before, yeah, I feel your pain.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, tell me what next? What does thriving in work life and both work and professional and personal life look like for you?
Great question. Um, we've got a really popular exercise we do with people called the life sketch, right? And it's where you look at all the different facets of life and kind of analyze what you're grateful for about them and what you'd like to improve. And then you look at the ways that they're actually connected to each other. And my husband and I do this, we try and do it every 6 to 12 months. And we've recently gone back to the life sketch and said, okay, what are we looking for next? And I think being self-employed in a very young business, we are still in that phase of inconsistency. And so
Mm.
I think what's next on the work front is that I'm looking for ways um, to make work pants a little bit more consistent, a little bit steadier, a little less like a roller coaster. Still fun,
Mhm.
but to give it a little bit more certainty. And on the life front, one of the big insights we had from the life sketch was around new experience. And we've got some experiences we've got planned, including taking the kids back to Europe and Scotland, where my husband's from, to meet family over there. But equally, cost of living crisis, we realize that there are so many ways to have new experiences for us and our children that don't cost us anything.
Mm.
And so we're making deliberate choices about places we go on the weekend, meals we eat, in any way, even trying just new languages, anything small we can do to bring all those new experiences into life. So that's kind of our little project for the next little while, is how do we have those macro and micro new experiences?
Oh, I love that. I have to say,
Mm.
I also take a page out of that book to my family. So my kids are a bit older than yours; they're in their teens, and what we try to do is we go out for a different meal in a different suburb in Sydney
Love it.
every few weekends, just to get a different experience, right? Whether it's Indian
Yeah.
in Harris Park or Fur in Cabramatta, or it's getting yourself out of your little bubble is so important. And I agree with
Mm,
you, when the cost of living pressure is so tight, it just means you
mm,
need to get so much more creative in what you do with
mm.
your family.
Yeah. And in that creativity, like that's a life skill. I can't remember where I read it, but recently, maybe it was one of those parenting reels that you thought this one reel on Instagram is going to solve all of my parenting woes. And it said, if you teach children to find the wonder in the ordinary, then the extraordinary will take care of itself.
Love
And
that.
that one really hit home, because if we could spend an hour looking at different sized and shaped and textured and colored seashells and spend nothing. And then we could spend a couple of $100 taking them to some amusement park where we eat shite food. It's too hot. They didn't like they love it, but they hate it. And I'm like, well, opening our minds to the really simple pleasures in life can give them the wonderful.
Oh, so right.
Mm,
Now, my last question for you is you are now on the Dear Thrive platform, and Ali, you can book Ali's time or attend one of her workshops on the Dear Thrive platform. Maybe just quickly talk to us around how you can support our members.
great. So I think the obvious one might be that you're battling with the journey of parenthood and professional career, in which case that is definitely our jam. But equally, I think you might be looking for ways to really focus in on career aside from parenthood. Parenthood's happening on the side, and you think, I need to invest a little bit more in my career. And so, if it's about the parenting and career journey, definitely we've got you there. But equally, my background in career development means that if you want to talk about how to transition into a new discipline, into a new area in your organization, to get a new role, to work towards a promotion, to manage a really tricky situation that's happening at work, like any of those things. Or it might be like, I actually just don't know what I want to do next. Career counseling is really valuable for that. So maybe you're sitting on there's a bit of a fork in the road, but you're not really sure where it could go. And that's when it can be really helpful to talk to someone like me about what are some possibilities, or what are some ways I can discover what those possibilities could be and start to explore them. Another one is, unfortunately, many folks are experiencing redundancy, having been through it a couple of times myself, and also recognizing that there are some really helpful steps that you can take as you go through that process. So if someone's going through redundancy, definitely, I think I've still got a few free spots on Dear Thrive. So jump in and grab one, because it'll just cost you your time to have a conversation with someone who might help you see your way forward.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, Ali. I really appreciate your vulnerability, sharing your story, and love the journey you're on with Work Pants. So congratulations, and thank you for supporting us on Dear Thrive.
Thank you so much for having me.